Welcome to Church 3.0, presented by Apollos, a podcast where we explore the nuances of modern Christian culture and the challenges of cultivating community while maintaining impact and relevance in the church. Join Tyler Vance, COO of Apollos, as he talks to church leaders from around the world to gain a deeper understanding of the Christian faith in a modern context. Push boundaries, change lives, create a more hopeful future.
Hey, welcome today, guys. We have a good friend of mine and a special guest with us. I know you're going to enjoy the expansion of your mind, as every time I talk to you, Nathan, my mind and my view about what God is and can do, especially through the local church, gets expanded. Today, Nathan Artt, the principal and founder of Ministry Solutions Group. If you've heard of Ministry Solutions Group, you've probably heard of them in the forward-thinking church physical space. And Nathan, I'd love for you to unpack how you're helping churches reimagine their spaces to be more community-driven. But if you didn't know, he's also a really forward thinker when it comes to digital and all the ways that churches engage. And so I'm going to just go straight to the punch here. You've helped churches think differently across the board. And what's one of the things that you help facilitate them to ask the right questions when you're helping them reimagine and rethink all the things that you're a part of? So, welcome today, and let's get started with Nathan Artt.
Tyler, thank you so much for having me, man. I am more excited. I'm more than excited to be here, and this is one of my favorite subjects. And it is interesting if you know anything about it, because we are very focused on the creative building spaces. But in my opinion, 10 years ago we had an in-person audience, and we almost had a separate digital audience. And in today's world, we really have an audience who engages with us both digitally and physically. And to me, buildings and digital platforms really are just they're tools. They're tools to reach people with the beautiful message of Jesus Christ. And we have opportunities to utilize those tools in a different way. But actually, Tyler, one of the biggest reasons I am passionate about this subject is actually my journey to faith itself.
Yeah.
I became a Christian through the digital platform before I ever stepped foot inside of a church. And so that's why I'm always honored to talk about this subject, because of how much my life represents what I believe in and what we're doing.
Yeah, when you say that, unpack the next layer of that.
Well, I ran into a guy, you'll love this story. I ran into a guy at a church conference last year that knew me in high school. And at first, total PTSD. What is it? You look like Nathan Artt, but you obviously don't belong here. He later introduced me to one of his pastor friends as, this is Nathan. In high school, he was voted least likely to become a Christian. And so for me, I didn't grow up in a great environment. Both my parents left actually before I even graduated high school, and it just wasn't a good situation. And growing up that way, the question was, does God exist and he doesn't care about me, or does he just not exist at all? But either way, there was something about it that just I didn't really see relevance in my life, and almost resented the idea. Got somewhat adopted by a Christian man, invited me to church all the time. Never wanted to go to church. And then one year he gave me a DVD series by Andy Stanley. I watched it. I loved it. Later, his wife signed me up for something where she said, it's a bunch of single guys. They're going to meet at a house in your area a couple times a month. What I now know to be called a small group. And truly, December 15th, 2010, I was in my apartment by myself, had never gone to church, and I raised my hands and I gave my life to the Lord. 3 weeks later was the very first time I stepped foot inside a Buckhead church.
Yeah, man. Thank you for sharing that journey.
Yeah.
A little crossover. Many years ago, I first got connected to the team at Life Church when I was serving in another local church.
Okay.
Because they were actually doing something very crazy. They were training small group leaders with DVDs.
Huh.
And that was my actual first connection point to the team at Life Church before I joined the staff many years ago. So,
wow. Okay, cool.
That's a strange connection. I actually didn't know we had the DVD piece
DVDs,
of
we sound old. We sound
if
old.
you're listening and you're unsure of what a DVD is, you might have seen these circular discs that are
That's right.
silver.
That's right.
And people used to put them places and pictures would come on your TV.
Crazy. Crazy. Yeah, we've come a long way, haven't we, man?
Yeah. I think that's I mean, at what point did Buckhead Church count your metrics?
Not for a while. Now I will say I wanted to get more involved. And when I became a Christian, and if I go into the whole story, I'll actually get very emotional. Even almost 15 years later, I had never felt a peace like that in my life.
Yeah.
When I gave my life to the Lord, I literally just felt the weight of the world off my shoulders, and I felt the love. And at that moment in my life, I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life helping other people get to that moment for themselves. So when I did get involved at Buckhead Church, I got involved in some service and things. And then they said, well, in order to do that, you have to get baptized. And of course I had to ask, like, tell me what that is again. But I'll have to tell my story on a big screen. No, thanks. But no, I didn't give for a long time. There was a lot of things I didn't do. And it took quite a while to kind of get into, but that was the model back then. That's one of the things you and I talk about a lot was, in 2010, you look at any church metric and you ask, what's the most important metric? People will often say attendance because not because it's the end goal, but for many decades, it's been the predictive analytic of engagement. And I feel that we now live in a world where attendance is almost a lag indicator and engagement is the predictive analytic to attendance. People are actually engaging with a church, engaging in community and with content first before they actually raise their hand and say, I'm ready to be seen. So back then that, yes, it was a big deal for me to attend, but, frankly, following that same line, I had already been engaged digitally. I knew this is where I wanted to go to church. I already had a community of people that were at that church. And so it wasn't hard for me to get involved because when I got there, I already knew that I wanted to be there.
Yeah.
Which is how I think most people now, that is their pathway into the church.
I do believe that's most people's pathway into the church. I absolutely agree with you. And you break, and guys, this is why I love talking to you, Nathan. You just broke the other misnomer that we encounter a lot with the digital versus physical and that whole, should we call it hybrid? Whatever. But the point of digital engagement is to lead to in-person engagement. It naturally lends itself when you draw closer to the heart of Jesus, when you begin passionately pursuing him. The outcome of that is community with others. Do not neglect the gathering of the saints.
Amen.
And so like you made that connection. I just want to remake it just so it's super clear because we still are navigating some of those same objections when it comes to, will this cannibalize my weekend experience? Will this,
And here's the thing, the data doesn't support that conclusion at all. And not just in the church, and you and I have some clients in common that we can point to, but let's go back even into retail. When COVID hit I heard church leaders having these conversations like, hey, we're either going to become avatars in a church metaverse, which thank God that didn't actually happen, or we're going to, just hunker down and wait for things to get back to quote unquote normal. It's like, here's the thing I believe about COVID. It didn't change a thing. It took 20 years of change and condensed it down into a 3-year period. The normal was already going away. It was just going away slowly. So if you look at retail, what you'll find is that the companies who really invested in their digital presence saw their in-store sales increase by 100, 200, 300%. In fact, Target went from near bankruptcy to being dubbed the retail model of the future in 5 years. And the year that they did that, they had invested billions of dollars into the digital platform. But that year that Bloomberg announced that, only 8% of Target sales came online. 92% of the sales came from the store, despite the focus on the digital effort, because Target, and I love this, their chief marketing officer said this, if we want to be relevant to our customers, we have to stop caring when and where they purchase. Our goal is to compel people to make Target a part of their everyday shopping experience. And I thought, whoa, that's coming from a secular retailer. What if we reframe that for the church? What if our goal was to make the church a part of people's everyday life, or the gospel a part of people's everyday life through the local church? What if we were the mechanism for that? How much more relevant would we be? How much more often would we see people if we were literally a part of their everyday life? And for Target, they grew their market cap by 300%. And for the churches that you and I are working with, we're seeing so many conversions from anonymous viewers into active users, active engagement. And it's because we're meeting people where they are, where it's not about convenience, it's about relevance.
Yeah. Like I said, every time I talk to you, dude, my mind is like, I'm just thinking through the pastors that go, hey, I invested in digital and like my weekend attendance is growing, therefore I don't need to invest in digital. The thing you just broke down with Target is they spent billions on digital and then their in-person store retail metrics went through the roof.
That is correct.
Okay.
And the correlations between that story and the church are just astounding, but Home Depot is no different. So like one of the things I studied was, why did the same headwinds of change with digital platform, we call it the Amazon effect, why did it put Sears and JCPenney out of business? But at the same time, Home Depot, Walmart, Target, other stores are up and to the right, brick and mortar stores.
Yeah.
And the difference was where Sears and JCPenney used the digital platform to basically market a sale that was happening this Sunday, which I can talk about. Target, Home Depot's method was, we want to equip DIYers. And the more people we can equip to be DIYers, the more tools and materials they'll buy from Home Depot. Target was compelling people to make Target a part of their everyday shopping experience. Like, there were things in there that were so far above and beyond trying to take an in-store experience and digitize it.
Yeah. How, you talk about like the shift from COVID and the acceleration. What are you seeing things that churches did well during COVID that are sticking, that are unexpected?
I'll tell you, I mean, to start, I think one of the most beautiful things that came through that was just innovation, forced and very difficult innovation. And I'm lucky I get to be the sideline reporter for this conversation, because the guys that were in the trenches, man, their plates were they were full. But it forced us to separate some of our mission from our methods. And if the audience that we're trying to reach is changing in how they not just engage with the church, but how they engage in everyday life. People don't know this. The U.S. went through the largest domestic population migration in the history of the country in 2024. People are moving. They're getting out of their community. They're looking for, and the church is where they look, right, to build new community in their new location. Churches I saw a lot are going, okay, our audience is changing. How they're engaging is changing, and we finally have permission to think differently. And the churches that did are so much better off today than they were even in 2020. And the ones that wanted to hold on to the method and kind of couple that with the mission are not seeing the same results. And but yeah, I think it was just fun to be a part of the innovation and the out of the box thinking. And oh my gosh, what if we? I love that conversation. What if we? That was really what I heard, was people giving themselves permission to innovate.
Yeah, and I've shared this before in other conversations, but the local church that I'm a part of, the location specifically that I'm a part of, during COVID, my campus pastor would shoot videos on his phone.
That's right.
And just connect.
Yeah.
Right? And even though I wasn't attending every week for a few short months, we were pretty quick to open back up. I felt more connected to my church than I ever did.
Amen, brother.
Right?
Amen.
And at the same time, the minute we opened back up, that wasn't on a KPI sheet. That wasn't a metric that was being tracked. And, you inspect what you expect is a saying that I would say. And No one was inspecting that behavior. No one was expecting that behavior. And so it just stopped. And do I feel as connected now, a couple of years removed from that, than I did at the time? No.
And amen. Yeah, I agree.
And I mean, like Ben Snyder, and I mean, we've got a podcast with him. He says the daily prayer in Apollos has completely changed the way I interact in the lobby. Because every single conversation is 3 or 4 layers deeper than, hey, how you doing this week?
Well,
it's,
yeah,
hey, I was praying for your mom. How, like, can you give me an update on that? And people are blown away. They feel connected via digital. And that leads to this. That's my experience, and I've heard others say the same.
Well, there's a lot of studies on that, and I would even say there's this. Let's debunk another myth that you can't get to know people unless you're in that one-on-one type of relationship or get to know them. I would argue that I could learn more about you, Tyler, looking at the 25 last Google searches than I could running into you, bumping into you on a Sunday in the middle of a crowd and asking you, how you doing? And you say, blessed and highly favored. Meanwhile, you could be going home and dealing with stuff that I couldn't even imagine. I don't know that because it wasn't a safe place for us to have those conversations. One of the biggest things digital provides is that safety, but it also provides the relevance. So you and I worked with Liquid, and they launched their app with prayer. And if you remember, their goal was to have 100,000 prayer requests prayed for and submitted in 4 weeks, and they hit 157,000. And thousands of those people were people who were not in the membership database, which means they had been engaging online, watching as anonymous viewers. But if the second the conversation changed, and how can I pray for you? Turns out they were watching for a reason. And here's the beautiful part. Not only did they exchange their anonymity for value, for prayer, right?
Yeah.
They told you what the most important thing in their life is at this moment, the thing they need prayer for. How much, I mean, what can you imagine where we would be and how we could engage with people if you brought the gospel to them through prayer and provided them the safety in which they can engage with you on their terms regarding the matters that are most relevant and important in their lives? Or I can invite you to watch a sermon on Goliath this Sunday too. I could do that.
Yeah, Nathan, I'm not going to argue with you on that. And I think this is I'm careful to like overstate this, right? Because I don't want to bring like this. There are people that are called to do ministry like this, right? And there are people that are not. But the stewardship of people is a highly spiritual thing. Especially, I mean, in my background, I have my pastoral degree. I have, my ordination licenses hanging on the wall right here in my office, right? I've spent the majority of my adult life as a pastor, not as a technologist by any means. And I wouldn't say I am one today. There's a burden that you carry as you are called to shepherd a flock.
Agreed.
And you got to do it.
You got to do it. And part of the challenge is really getting to that part where someone does feel the safety that they will open up to you. And that can take a very, very long time if the conversation is about you, right? Imagine us being in a conversation and you've got something on your mind, and I'm just telling you, well, hey, listen, I'm I own a business and I'm this, and I'm talking about myself the whole time, and I don't ask questions about you. The safety never gets built. And I think that's one of the things that digital provides, is the opportunity, right, to put people in a position where they can talk about themselves in a way, or find what they're looking for when they need it most. But in a safe environment. And once that trust is built, that's really when people feel comfortable taking the next step. Like, hey, you're relevant to me and you care about me, and therefore because here's the one thing that digital can never do. They can never replace community. Mm-hmm. People want to be around people. Digital doesn't replace that. If anything, it enhances it. And I think it accelerates the process to move from, hey, who are you, to I trust you.
Well, I mean, I'm going to quote you directly here. This is always dangerous.
Okay.
Online church is not a replacement for the physical church.
Oh, gosh. No, I definitely
unpack that.
Well, because here's the thing, like, and this happened in multi-site too. Like, you'd hear churches say, oh, we tried multi-site, it didn't work. And it's like, well, maybe multi-site wasn't, maybe execution was the problem. So a lot of churches, you said earlier, we tried digital, we did these things and kind of went back. The problem that a lot of churches have with the digital medium is really how they use it. There's not the digital platform itself. And if you take, Kyle Ranson said this, and I love it, if you simply take an in-person experience, record it, and put it up digitally, that's akin to recording a play and calling it a movie, right? So the people who like movies and the hi-fi and all the cool,
that's
you're
a
not
really
going to
good
get
analogy
from recording a play. But if you like plays and the intimacy of being in the room and seeing the actors, you're robbed of that too. The platform was not built to take an in-person experience and broadcast it. The digital platform is about something else. You look at YouTube Shorts. People engage maybe in shorter doses, but with more frequency, right? So digital allows you, like if I want to be a part of somebody's everyday life, right, as a local church, I can't get them to come into my building every day. But the beauty of digital is I can take the church to them every day, right? Through prayer, through devotionals, through content. So again, Tyler, you may be preaching an amazing sermon on Goliath this weekend, but really I'm having a hard time in my marriage. I'm trying to figure things out. Where can I find, and it turns out Craig did an amazing marriage series 2 years ago. But this is where my highest, most pressing need is today. How does the church connect me to that, right? Digitally. And that is the beauty of the digital platform, is helping people find what they're looking for when they need it most.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, what you're talking about really is like content in the method of discipleship, right?
It is.
And curating content. And so talk just another layer deeper on that.
Yeah. So when we consult with churches, we'll put the word content on the board and say, look, there's basically 2 strategies here. Okay. And I'm a lead pastor and I love alliteration. So here we go. So content itself is not a strategy. Okay. Hear me. Content in and of itself is not a strategy. How you use content is. So the 2 big ways you can use content is to either create consumption or conversation, because conversation leads to community. Okay. So right now, there's still a lot of churches that are using content for consumption. Hey, now that you've watched my awesome sermon, here's another awesome sermon you can watch without telling me a single thing about you, who you are, or why you're here. Content for conversation is different. So I go back to the prayer. I've told you who I am and that this is my thing I need prayer for. You wouldn't, if I'm having this in a one-on-one conversation with you, you wouldn't stop me and say, all right, well, now that we know who you are, let me tell you about me, right? You'd listen, you would ask questions. That's your innate posture as a pastor, right? Posture as a pastor. I did it again.
Listen, right? You're on a roll. Keep going.
But when we think of our digital assets, that's exactly what we do. We cut off the conversation to talk about us. So if I submit a prayer about my marriage and I have volunteers on the prayer team who are praying for this, not only can you tell me you're praying for me, but say, hey, listen, first of all, I hate that you're going through that. It's really tough. I'd want to know where you are, what campus that you're potentially closest to. I said, hey, well, by the way, too, here's some information. And by the way, you're about marriage, like that could be, or divorce. So are you going through a divorce? You might go through a divorce, or are you divorced? Because I tell you, you wouldn't want to send marriage rescue curriculum or content to somebody who just got divorced. That's not what they're looking for, right? So that ability to engage with people digitally is just like what you and I would do conversationally. So the strategy has to build. If you're going to go beyond consumption to conversation and community, you have to be great at asking questions and not positioning yourself as selling a product. And I think that conversion, that opportunity to bring people into conversation really comes by understanding what they care about the most and what their needs are in their life at the time.
So let me frame something, and then you said earlier how might we questions are a personal favorite of yours. So I'm going to lean on that.
Okay.
Here. The typical North American church has succeeded for decades on content driven solely out of weekends, right?
Yeah.
It's been attractional, and you said, hey, the attractional, it's no longer a leading, it's now a lagging indicator. There's a shift there. It's been the thing that we use to get attention and attraction, right? And you're saying, hey, now content is not the thing that is drawing into conversation. That's a difference. Maybe it never existed, but it at least existed enough to build the weekend. And so now I have a weekend that I'm putting probably 90% of my resources into. How might I engage content to begin those conversations? If everything else around me is designed to not do that, how might I actually do that?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, the Sunday morning experience is still so incredibly important.
Absolutely.
So I'll give you an analogy. If so my refrigerator breaks down, then I'm going to go back to Sears and JCPenney, and I go to the Sunday morning paper, and Sears telling me that they're having this amazing sale this weekend on lawnmowers. That doesn't necessarily meet my need. I might not come to the store, right? Difference is,
Yeah.
You go to Home Depot and you do that same thing in refrigerator. They'll literally walk you through exactly what you need, where to find it in the store. They'll even go set it aside for you to pick up, but they're asking what you need, not telling you what they're selling, right? Doesn't mean that they're going to stop selling refrigerators that weekend or lawnmowers that weekend because I happen to need a refrigerator. It just means that they're helping me find what I need most, right? So this Sunday morning is still incredibly important. It's whatever the content is, the church is world-class at creating content. We're not world-class at helping people find the content. We tell them what we're talking about this week, and we take the chance all the time that the majority of the audience, especially the new audience, right?
Yeah.
It's shopping for refrigerators while we're talking about lawnmowers. So it's not a replacement. It's the repackaging of content that makes it relevant, searchable, findable, so that if I'm engaging with you, I can find what I'm looking for. Or if I am talking to one of my neighbors who's not a Christian and they're going through something, I can easily find a relevant piece that I can send to them. But it's not episodic. It's more about helping people find what they need.
I haven't used this phrase, and I'm going to unpack this probably differently. I have a real life retail experience of this morning. I'll share with you.
Okay.
But I think what you're describing is flexibility.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Right? Stop caring when and where the customer purchases. Yep.
Exactly. Here, I'm not a coffee snob by most metrics, but I'm picky about my coffee. I have a subscription model for that. I wanted to add something to my subscription model. I know I'm getting another shipment. I wanted to add a package to it, so I didn't have to pay another $7 of shipping. My subscription model I'm in doesn't allow you to add another package to it, even though it's the same company. So this company wrote me back in support and said, that's great. You could just place another order. My response to that as a consumer was, I'll just cancel all my orders. No. Not to be facetious. Literally, if I cancel my subscription and I just place the order I want, I don't have to pay shipping. So why would I keep my subscription and pay for 2 shipping charges?
Yeah. And they'll tell you that's not
and it was the flexibility of not being able to fit within the model.
Right. And that leads into another conversation tying the two things together is, attractional church with the attendance being the lag indicator. Now, I think, and to that point, right, social media, digital engagement, all these things, what happened was all these tools were used to get a network of people to understand the value of a brand. But I think the brand of the future understands the value of its network.
Oh, come on.
Right. So now, I'll give you a great example. I love Chick-fil-A. I'm in Atlanta, Christian chicken all the way, baby. Chick-fil-A makes more money per store than any other fast food operation in the United States by a lot. They were pre-COVID at 7 million. Number 2 was McDonald's at 1.6. And here's the crazy part. During COVID, Chick-fil-A's per store revenue increased over $11 million. So they're far and away per store higher grossing than any other store. And they spend less on advertising than any other major fast food operation. And if you think about that, they spend less on advertising. But watch a Chick-fil-A commercial. What do they have? They have a customer sharing a story with their team, with their staff, with one of their employees, right? They don't even show you a chicken sandwich. But you go to Arby's, we got the beef, right? It's clever. It's very clever. I still haven't eaten an Arby's in 3 years, but my kids eat a Chick-fil-A 3 times a week, right? So that's what I mean by a brand that understands the value of its network. Is the church of the future is going to be about going outside the walls, reaching people. And there was this guy named Jesus that was really good at that, by the way. Meeting people in their most tangible needs before he engaged them with the offer of salvation. And I think that's what a lot of the great movements of the gospel have seen. And I think that's what the future of the church will be. And there's no better way since Gutenberg to go out and reach hundreds of thousands or millions or even billions of people.
Now, we're talking a lot about like digital here, and we kind of got camped there, but you also spend a lot of your day-to-day helping churches reimagine spaces, physical, in-person spaces. What are you seeing that correlates there?
Well, kind of a lot of the same conversation, just how do we use our buildings differently? So I become a Christian, my background was in private equity, commercial real estate. And about 2 years into my faith journey is when I started Ministry Solutions Group. And when I first started working with churches, I was just blown away that we spend millions of dollars on these buildings that sit in the middle of thriving communities of people that we're trying to reach, but our building sits empty 6.5 days a week. I just don't get it. And one of the things I started out with was, how do we create spaces that are as relevant as they are reverent? How do we have buildings that fund ministry and not just ministries that fund buildings? How do we meet someone at Jacob's Well Tuesday afternoon who's not coming on a Sunday morning? And it really starts by asking the question is, what does our community need that we can provide? And so we do a lot of third-party operated childcare, indoor play spaces, actual coffee shops. And no, I don't mean Hebrews Cafe, like finding the coolest coffee shop in the area and bringing them into a space within the church, creating pickleball courts, land use. Like, how can we use not just our digital assets, but also our physical assets to serve those around us? And a lot of the churches that we're working with are seeing, and I'm not exaggerating, hundreds and some thousands of new people coming into the church through what they're doing with their buildings Monday to Friday.
Yeah. I've been in those coffee shops and in those spaces, and they're done phenomenally, by the way.
Thank
you. Great job. But I do see the correlation there. You're talking about, once again, the conversation around people and opening the door for that. I would say maybe that we're returning or attempting to return to individual people as the hero of the story of the local church.
Oh, I absolutely too. And equipping saints for the work of the ministry. I mean, that's one of the beauties that Multi-Site launched. Was it wasn't putting out sites so that it was easier for people who are already coming to church.
Yeah.
It was for the people to invite their network of people who might not drive past 20 churches to get to your church. So what do? We put a church in the area to make you more effective at reaching your own community. Digital is very similar. I think it's equipping saints for the work of the ministry. So there's, in the business world, right, we have what we call a B2C play, which is business to customer. We want to go directly to customer, try to get as many people as possible. And there's also companies like mine that are B2B, where we can equip you to be better at what you do. And I think the church has to do both. I think that the outreach strategy of digital is kind of one of the major focuses, but daily discipleship, the prayer app, being able to go into and go through a study plan, like being a part of those things on a daily basis keeps you connected to the gospel, keeps you connected to your community, and makes it so much easier to share what your local church is doing, who they are, based on what's relevant to the person that you're having the conversation with.
A minute ago, you said this, and I'm going to go back to it. You said Gutenberg moment. You're an incredible visionary. You can see the future. What is the Gutenberg moment for the local church today?
Well, yeah, that's a lot of context. I mean, the whole idea is that Gutenberg didn't even invent the printing press. It came to market because there was this huge group of people called serfs who went through the bubonic plague. The rich people somewhat survived. They were wiped out. So when they came back, they had the opportunity to make higher demands, higher pay. Literally created what's now known as the middle class. The first thing that they wanted for themselves and their kids was literacy, and Gutenberg jumped on that. And what's really interesting is that in order to do that, he used the Bible to teach people to read and write. It codified national languages that had never been done before. There was no German or French or English language. There was dialects, but it codified languages around what he printed to scale. But this whole generation of people was literally trained to read or write through the Bible, and it meant that they could step away from kind of the abuses at the time of the church. And so it equipped people. It put the gospel in 500,000 people's living room over 30 years. And that's print copy. That's Martin Luther posting his theses on the door, right? So many amazing things came. The Renaissance, Reformation came from that. And here we have this tool that does that exponentially more, has no limitation of reach, the ability of being able to put the gospel. And I'll tell you something, as we wrap up here, here's something I believe with all my heart. And I'm this person. We were not just created by God. We were created for him, right? John Ortberg said that we were designed with an insatiable desire to consume as the counterpoint to his insatiable desire to give. God designed us, this engine, right, to be run off of him, his fuel. And we wonder why we're unhappy or why things break when we pour water into a gasoline engine, right? So we think sometimes that we are trying to introduce the idea of God to people, but if you look through history, like, people don't need to be introduced to the idea that they want something bigger than them protecting them. That's the idea of God. So what do I think? I think people don't necessarily have a problem with the gospel as much as they have a problem with Christians. They don't identify as church people. So just because I'm curious about a God, the last place on the planet I might go is inside a church building with a bunch of church people to find those answers. So what does the church of the future look like to me? Gutenberg on steroids. When people have questions, they want to have conversation, they want safety. This is what the digital platform provides. Provides an opportunity to reach people who have questions about Jesus and meet them in their living room, in their space, on their terms, and build safety, trust, and relevance with them. And I think we might be able to seat 1,000 people in a room, but we can reach billions with that tool. And that is what I'm excited about. And that's what I see God doing in his church.
I love it. I mean, if I read the Gospels, I don't think the woman at the well was met in the temple.
No.
I just, I don't, maybe I'm fuzzy on that, but I'm fairly certain Jesus met her where he's at. And in the same way, like, golly, my driveway is a place for the gospel to flourish.
Yeah.
My neighbors come over, I've had deeply spiritual conversations, we're yard chair in the front driveway, people, which looks weird in the neighborhood we live in. And that's okay. We know all of those things are true. Digital is a significant piece of that, of going and being where people are at. And I love that. The conversation of how does this God relate to me? I am curious. He has put eternity in the hearts
There you go.
of men.
There you go.
How might we give them access to the thing that we hold so dearly? It is the lamp, right?
Yes.
It is the city on a hill. It is, and Jesus talks about these things so poetically and perfectly for the culture and climate that we are in today. That's my soapbox. Thanks for letting me stand on it today. Thanks for walking up to the top of it with me.
Heck yeah, Tyler. I appreciate this so much, man. What a fun conversation. Love what you guys are doing too. You're doing such great work. I'm honored to be a part of it.
What we do, and I'll say this, is we get to work with local churches. The vessel at which we get to do that just happens to be technology. You get to work with local churches. You have your own vessel to do that through development of real estate, through digital strategy, through many different avenues. We just are authentic to the thing that God has called us to do. Work when you find work for your hands, work with all your might. And that's what we get to do. And we get to do that as a part of the local church ourselves, right?
Amen.
And I know many people in our space would say, yeah, we're part of the local church. We attend church, and I think there's a uniqueness about you, Nathan, that it comes from a fire within inside.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So I appreciate it. Thank you for investing today.
Yeah.
We will give links to all the ways to get a hold of you and your team. You have pathways, clear path forward. If you're a team that's struggling with, hey, how do we know what the right next step is? If you need help in your real estate development, if you are sitting on a building that is going, hey, we spent a lot of money on air conditioning this week and nobody was in the building, like those are the things that you now as an old executive pastor, those are the things that come to my mind. Sorry. Your team has so many different levers to pull in serving the local church. And so we'd love to get people connected to you. If you aren't familiar with Ministry Solutions Group or Nathan, follow them everywhere you can. Like I said, we'll link to that. Nathan, thank you.
Thank you, Tyler.
For your investment of time today and just the opportunity to chat on the phone, on video, whatever format it is with you. I always leave inspired. So thank you.
Thank you, man. Same. And I appreciate it so much.
All right. Have a great day, guys.